Well, today is the 5th year the U.S. federal government is observing the holiday of Juneteenth. It commemorates the day the last enslaved people in the Confederacy were informed of their freedom. Millions of Americans have celebrated Juneteenth at the state and local levels for years. The Emancipation Proclamation, which declared all people enslaved in Confederate-held territories were free, took effect on January 1st, 1863. But many slaveholders across the Confederacy refused to follow this order. Specifically in Galveston, Texas, it wasn't until the Union Army arrived 2.5 years later, after the Civil War ended, that the Emancipation Proclamation was actually enforced. On June 19, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger issued what was called General Orders No. 3 when he arrived in Galveston. It said in part, the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. The holiday's name of Juneteenth comes from a combination of June and 19th. Now, initially, Black Americans celebrated different emancipation days depending on the state they lived in, some of which are still celebrated today. For example, Mississippi's was on May 8th to mark the date when Union troops arrived there, while Maryland's was on November 1st to mark when the state passed a new constitution outlawing slavery in 1864. While Juneteenth continued to be observed in Texas and celebrated during the early 1900s across the South, it fell out of national attention for decades until the Civil Rights Movement. The year Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, 1968, his supporters celebrated Solidarity Day on June 19th, about 100 years after Major General Granger's speech. Activists gathered in Washington, D.C. to celebrate the progress of the Civil Rights Movement and demand legislation benefiting America's poor. About a decade later, in 1979, Texas became the first state to make Juneteenth an official holiday. Currently, 30 states recognize Juneteenth as a permanent state holiday, according to the Congressional Research Center.